Everyone, this is Philip, reporting live from the hub. I've just got back from the community meeting in Pohoiki, and we have an update from Ikaika from the boat, and we have an update from Scott Wilson from the air. So we have enough info to share with you guys some new information, what's happening down at Pohoiki. So thank you guys for joining. Quick version is that Pohoiki is still standing. It's still there. The flow that was actively spreading towards the boat ramp seems to have slowed quite a lot. It's hard to tell right now before our pictures in the dark whether it's really all the way stalled or not, but definitely the flow that was moving towards the boat ramp seems to have slowed, if not stopped, over the course of the day. We've been worried about a surge that's coming down the system. Our photographs from Scott Wilson show us that surge. That surge is coming down over top of the old flow, and it appears that at least initially it's pointing away from the boat ramp. Now the flow is big, it can spread out, so we'll check out the pictures and show you guys what's going on with that. But basically the first important news is that Pohoiki is still there. The flow that was moving fast towards it is not moving towards it nearly as fast, if at all. It's hard to tell until we maybe have some photographs from the nighttime. But let me show you guys a little bit of the pictures we have coming from Scott in particular. So if you guys actually had a chance to see Ikaika's live, you guys will see that he actually was able to show you guys Pohoiki is still there. The amount of lava going in the ocean is huge. It seems like a lot of the wind is blowing offshore, so from that point of view where he was, it was really impressive to see the clouds billowing over them, yeah. So, but let me turn the camera around you guys and show you guys the photographs that we have from Scott. Scott Wilson from Aloha Skies Aviation. And just to let you know, Scott is back in the air now as far as we understand, so we'll have more photographs from him later on. He will likely post a whole huge batch of them to Hawaii Tracker, or someone will for him at some point later tonight. So I'm going to show you guys some preliminary pictures here in a low resolution glare version that I have. And you guys can all go check out Scott's post when it gets put up here, hopefully in the next couple hours or so. So, all right guys, so here's what we got going on. So once again, just to remind you guys, these are pictures by Scott Wilson. Let's get that focus going there. Here we go. All right, so here's a photograph of the flow field. We're looking south, so the boat ramp is right here, right there. You guys can see the edge of the flow right here. There's a little bit of smoke and fume coming up from the edge of it over here, but you can't see too much. It could well be that the lava is still flowing underneath the surface. It's certainly very, very hot under there. Whether it's being fed or not is hard to really tell. We'll probably have to wait until Scott's later photographs to see how much glow we see from this area right in here, to see what potential it actually has. But what we've seen is, as far as advance, the advance has actually stopped moving to the south and west and actually has pushed out into the ocean right through here. So that's the first photograph we have from Scott. Let me show you guys a couple other views of this. So okay, here's another view of it, and here you guys can see. Well, let me go back to this last one here. Let me zoom in for you guys, because a lot of people are asking exactly where the flow actually went, right? So let's try to zoom in a little bit and see what we can show you guys of this flow right in here. All right, so you can see the boat ramp. My finger's gonna be kind of big, but I see the boat ramps over there. The house is still there. You see there's a lot of parking area still here, but the edge of the flow is right through here, yeah. So coming down Pohoiki Road, it looks like most of the stuff to the left in the area is what's got covered up all the way up to dead trees or so. And then to the right is where it has not been covered. So that's the status of Pohoiki. This photograph was taken probably about an hour, maybe in the last couple hours. So this afternoon, and basically showing the same thing that Ikaika saw from the boat, that Pohoiki is still there. One interesting thing to note from this photograph is from this angle, you don't see quite as big an ocean entry. I think most of the gas is blowing away from the camera, so maybe that's kind of why. But also kind of shows you guys, like, where the lava may actually be going. It's kind of hard to tell right here, but if anything, there's a lot more gas on this edge over here, and this is the north edge of it. So there you have it. Let's here's a more zoomed out view of that. Right, the big ocean entry coming from the northern edge here by Halanui, whereas the southern edge seems to be this edge right in here in particular. Seems to, at least at this moment of photograph, is no longer steaming, doesn't seem active anymore right through here. We do see a little bit of activity right through here, so we're kind of wondering what's going to happen right through there. All right, so those two versions. Here's a different view of the ocean entry. Now we're looking at the kind of Halanui area right through here, and the Pohoiki area would be farther up that way. And what we can see here is it appears that there is a overflow coming, the surge coming, overflowing on top of the old flow, and it's made this, it's kind of spread out right through here, right? But it's made this nice turn to the north away from the boat ramp, at least this edge of it, right? So this thing is fat. It can still spread out. It could still go down this way towards the boat ramp, you know, so I'm not saying that you know, we're out of the woods by any stretch. But the initial signs, the little we can tell, is that this surge seems to be pointing the way we'd like it to point, towards the north, right there. So we'll have to see how that goes. You know, I believe Scott's going to give us some photographs of the area in the evening time, and when we see what's actually glowing, we'll be able to tell a lot better what's going on through here. But I want to give you guys this update because I probably won't be able to stay up as late tonight. I was up on a boat early this morning. So share this with you guys now, and you guys can look for Scott's post and Hawaii Tracker later on when he's back on the ground. But this is a very important picture to show you guys, right? That, you know, this big surge flow is actually pointing to the north, you know, mostly, instead of pointing, this could be easily pointing the other direction like we saw yesterday, and that's what kind of pushed that surge down towards the boat ramp area. So there's that. That's basically the ocean entry area. We also have some photographs of Fissure 8. These are all from Scott Wilson, Aloha Skies Aviation. We'll be posting these to Hawaii Tracker, or someone will on his behalf at some point later tonight. I see you guys commenting about the meeting. I will comment on that shortly, but let me get through these last couple pictures as well. So here is a picture of Fissure 8. This photograph was taken also recently. You can see that you can still see some relief, you know, some shadow, showing us that there's actually some high ends of the banks right over here. So the lava channel that was pretty empty on the photographs we saw from Bruce Amori this morning. Hi Bruce, thank you. Bruce flew with Paradise Helicopters as usual, who's been helping us document this eruption from the air. During his flight, which was around 6 in the morning, the surge hadn't arrived yet in the Fissure 8 system. We had summit collapse around 6:40, I believe, in the morning. So we expected the first surge to appear at Fissure 8 maybe at 7:40 or so, by which time Bruce's photographs were actually catching the lull before the pulse came through. So that's great. That's a very important part of it. But that might be why it might look a little different from what's going on here. So there's Fissure 8. What you guys might notice is that you can clearly see the upper crater walls inside the fissure, right? This thing isn't bubbling nearly as high as it was before, right? In fact, the whole cone has kind of been settling, sagging down, slumping down. Not sure exactly how you want to describe it, but it definitely is getting shorter. I believe there may be some more imagery of that coming up on Tracker at some point, so you guys can look for that. More detailed update coming, I believe, soon at some point later tonight. So this image over here is the one that kind of gave a lot of us some pause. So there's Fissure 8, river of lava going down. But when we look in the shape of the cone right there, it appears that we have a new little gap right in there where we can kind of see, you guys see this little dog leg, the red or the orange goes sideways, jumps up and goes sideways again, right? So there's a piece of rock, black rock missing that belonged right in here. And that thing slumped into the cone sometime during the last day. And we've deduced that by looking at the County of Hawaii Flickr image. And this is a screenshot of a video they have posted there. And what you can hopefully see is that there is kind of a tall rim right here, and then there's like a sliver of land that's kind of cracked from that rim and it's kind of sliding into the cone, right? So it's like a little lip on the inside of that upper cone. So what seems to happen is that one piece right in here, that chunk fell in. So I'll go back. See if we can get that a little more focus for you guys. So if we go back, now you guys can see that big chunk missing right there, right? So this is actually happening on the inside of the cone, so it doesn't directly impact any flow going out of the thing yet. However, the fact that we are seeing such a large slump block fall in is of concern in itself, because, you know, as the USGS keeps repeating, one of the major risks for what they're calling Lava Shed Zone 1, which is Leilani Estates, is collapse of either the cone or of this upper channel area that might divert a whole bunch of lava into the Leilani area. So we'll keep a close watch on this. We've been watching this for a while, but this is probably the clearest evidence we've seen of a big piece of the rim actually falling in right there. So you guys can see that gap right there. I'll flip back to the other photograph now, so you guys can see, taken from video on Flickr. You guys can see that structure right in here. This was the day before. This was yesterday, right? So you guys can see that. All right, so that's the update on Fissure 8. We'll keep a close eye on what's going on over there. I'm not sure exactly when that piece dropped in, but what we've been noticing with the channel walls is that when we have the lulls, like the areas between the surges, that's when we have, it might be that the lava that's filling the channel is a little lower, so it's not pushing against the walls quite as much, and so the lava has got a lot of weight, right? So it can actually hold up those walls. So if it drops down, then that piece of wall is not being held from the side. It can kind of tip into the channel right there. So if I had to guess, you know, an educated guess would be that during the lags, the lulls in between the surges is probably when that thing falls in, and then it probably gets pushed or swept out or broken apart or whatever, however what's getting cleared out of there is probably happening during the surge. And that's, you know, one of the sources, whether it's the most likely the channel walls, but, you know, it could be a piece of the cone as well that actually gets pushed down the channel system as a lava boat. So that's kind of the pattern we've been seeing, and that's kind of what we expect is probably going on. Yeah, so kind of to recap, you know, Pohoiki is still there. The surge just come through the system. It seems like it kind of goes through the upper part of the channel fairly fast. We had reports from people in a cinder road area talking about seeing the surge arrive at that location within an hour and a half of the collapse at Halemaumau. So if that's the case, then, you know, the collapse is actually surging at Fissure 8 maybe an hour later. Within half an hour, that pulse, the first beginning of it, reaches the kind of the bend in a river by Kapoho, by Cinder Road over there, and then from there going down, it seems to take a lot longer. Now, I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, what the dynamics exactly are, but it seems like maybe it's piling, you know, it's kind of funneled through the channel very quickly, but once it gets to an area where it's not quite as channelized and it's starting to spread out, and it basically makes a big pile and spreads and surges, and that takes a lot longer for that flow to actually move. So that's how come we're seeing the surges occur, and then it might be 10 to 12 hours later we're seeing an actual flow front by the ocean, by the boat ramp Pohoiki, actually making its movement much after the fact of the actual collapse explosion. So that seems to be what's going on. You know, that's what we have a photograph from Scott earlier this evening, showing that surge pointing to the north, fortunately. The thing is, you guys, is that we've been having one of these surges, you know, if not every day, then every other day. Pohoiki has dodged several bullets so far. This one that's coming today seems to be pointing kind of away, so that's great. but we're likely going to have to go through this again, whether tomorrow or the next day. We're going to have probably a similar situation until something major changes with the flow. It keeps kind of wiggling left and right and surging and coming back over itself, and it's going to be only a matter of time before Pohoiki is taken, just because the flow is so wide, there's so much lava, and it's made a high spot now uphill of that area. So the boat ramp lives another day. Pohoiki, the areas that are covered have been mostly the newer areas, the newer development areas, so it's kind of looking a bit more like old style Pohoiki as far as what's left. At least today. We'll have to see in the morning, what really happens with that surge. That seems to be pointing away from the boat ramp today, but those things can spread out in all directions, so there's still a chance that that surge does spread to the south and the west and overrides the boat ramp sooner than we would like. But I personally think that tonight it's gonna live on another night, and we'll have to wait until the morning to see what happens there and what's going on with that particular area. So, yeah, so that's Pohoiki. People were asking about Fissure 8, the naming. The name is gonna be initiated by Hawaiian elders. So there is a process that they have to go through. I don't expect it to be quick. So don't hold your breath waiting for another name for Fissure 8. Alright, so the meeting that just happened in Pahoa. So let me see if I can kind of recap basically what happened. We had a short introduction by USGS. The USGS didn't offer a whole lot of new information today. They kind of reviewed their report that was put out within the last week with their new lava shed zones, right? And they explained what's going on with that, as far, basically step through the scenarios, all the lava sheds, and talked about their conclusions from the report, including the much publicized one that the eruption could go on for months to years. And in citing the years, they actually did call out Heheahulu Cone by name, an eruption that we think might have lasted in the order of 35 years at least, possibly quite a bit longer. But there's that one, and Pu'o'o are the two examples of long-lived eruptions on a mid to lower East Rift Zone. Obviously, Heheahulu here in the lower East Rift Zone is the one that compares the most directly. And that's one example of an eruption that lasted for years. So that's, that's, as we've been saying, that's always been a possibility. We think it's a small possibility because most other eruptions that are in the area have lasted months instead. That was basically what they discussed, USGS discussed at the meeting, was basically walking through that report and explaining the details of it. Next, there was talk about the viewing area, I believe. And after a lot of hubbub, it seemed like they are not moving very fast towards the viewing area as a basic bottom line. So we had heard a report maybe about a week ago or so that there were going to be some announcement about a viewing area within a few days. It never happened, and it looks like it's not going to happen anytime soon either. Some of the things that they're bringing up are Security, Disability Act, monitoring, neighbor complaints. They basically brought up every possible objection that someone could bring up to the public viewing area. So I know there are people doing a lot of work to try to establish somewhere people can come in to see this and kind of kickstart the local economy. It appears to still be an uphill battle at this time. So we'll see exactly how that develops. But that is a story to be continued. As far after that, I believe there was the head of Public Works made comment as well about the status of the roads. They talked about the changing access down there as well. but that didn't really stick out to me as anything very different. Coming to the end of the meeting, there was a Q&A session, which has been happening for the last several meetings now. The first many meetings there was no chance for a Q&A, but now they were actually allowing Q&A. What seems to happen is that they will allow something in the order of between 3 and 5 questions, or statements. So what I've been watching happen in the last several meetings is that there's like a rush, right? That whoever the first 3 or 5 guys to the microphone are going to get to say something, and everyone else is not going to have a chance to say anything, unfortunately. And that's been very disturbing for people. People seem to have a real need to state their case in a public forum, and are not being given that chance. There were several questions that actually, statements that went through, and I can talk in a little more detail about those. But essentially, after Civil Defense decided that the last person had gone to ask questions, he basically said, "Okay, we're done." That people who were left were very frustrated. They began to shout their opinions because, understandably, they think they probably can't be heard any other way. There's people who have been coming, they're people standing in line, they're holding plans, they're having documents, they're handing all their notes. They've been doing this for weeks, and once again, don't have a chance to say anything. So they're just so frustrated, just start screaming out the crowd, hey, you need to extend the meeting, you need to take more questions, you need to listen to us. Those kind of things were what we were saying. Someone came out, a lady came out and said, do you really care? We see you here grinning and smiling, like, this is funny to you. Most of us here are living in a emergency situation. And she broke down in tears. And a police officer came and quickly, I'm not sure what's the right term, engaged her, eventually comforted her. But at first he probably subdued her a little bit because she was very agitated. I tried to catch that on camera, but I'm not sure if it came through or not. If it didn't, it's a shame. I know that there were some other guys there tonight that hopefully caught that and will post that high quality video as well. There was talk from Jason Twillman about several issues in the Paya Farms area. First being the DLNR police state, as it's perceived by many of the local residents in the area, who are now having to jump through even more hoops to bring workers to their properties. We had a couple people testify, actually, comment, they've been trying to do contract work, they can't bring in their work trucks, right? They gotta get in the client's vehicle. If they have any workers, they gotta do that as well. If they want to get a placard for the vehicle, they gotta go all the way into Hilo, right? Contractors need to charge by the hour, so it's not feasible for a contractor to charge their client the time it takes to drive to Hilo and get a placard and drive back. And guys who have friends coming over for the weekend, from out of town or whatever, having to park their car in Pahoa where there's no security, and having to have their guests with their luggage get in the residence vehicle and drive through that way. Very frustrating as well. That happened as well. What else? Jason talked about? Jason talked about the turtles. He did bring up the turtles. He did mention the fact, that DLNR appears to be spending their time policing residents from the lava flow in their backyard and not taking any action towards saving any of the turtles that we've now seen reports have died in Pohoiki, that had chances to be rescued, that had been reported. Similar story as Kapoho. Kapoho happened fairly quickly, right? So they are putting out the justification that they didn't have time to do it. However, people were moving stuff out of their house up to the very last minute, except it wasn't at the ocean. So there were a lot of doubts among the locals that they in fact did as much as they could have, right? Popular sentiment going around is for them to maybe not document, but for them to share how much time they've spent in turtle rescue as opposed to policing residents from lava flow. So I think that's a very valid point, right? I mean, the Department of Land and Natural Resources are the ones that everyone would call for turtle entanglement, for example, any kind of issues like that. And so that was brought up. A lot of people mentioned, how it was quite fitting that head of the civil defense was standing in front of a artwork Honu turtle. So the reminder was constant there for everyone who was watching the meeting, watching what was behind him. He maybe not even catch on to it for all I know. So Jason brought that up as well. And he may have gone somewhere else from there, I'm not sure exactly, but it may be that Jason had too many points that he wanted to address during his brief minute at the microphone, and probably overwhelmed the head of civil defense. He probably couldn't answer all those things at once. He also, as someone mentions, he was talking to someone else during the question, which has become typical, unfortunately, right? You'd think that the person being asked a question would have the full attention of the person who's doing the asking. However, in a passive said, "Oh yeah, we've been talking about how to answer your question," but it doesn't really come across that way. It doesn't come across as respectful. In fact, that seems to be a lot of the what's rubbing people's nerves raw, right? Is that is like the body language that's being shown during these meetings, and beyond that, the fact that they won't take more questions, right? I mean, if I could propose, no one's gonna listen to me, of course, but if I could propose it, they should shorten that meeting to half an hour long and have half an hour of questions, right? Or have a special meeting just for questions. So if anybody, has the will to start a movement to try to petition for something like that to happen, I mean, people are very, very frustrated not to have the chance to speak their mind in a public forum. So that seems to be the biggest frustration. That's why we had so many people yelling at the end of the meeting, yelling for an extension, yelling for answers, yelling just to be heard. That's the most frustrating thing to me, is yelling just to be heard, right? A lot of people are up there, they're just making statements. They're not even asking for a response from the civil defense. They want to just be heard. And, that's to me the biggest failure right there, to not have a chance to be heard. So yeah, you guys know that you guys have the power, right? You guys now have some knowledge of what happened there at the meeting. You guys have the power to do something to change it, much more so than any one of us individually. So those of you who are ready to take action, I encourage you to do so. In fact, it seems like if people want to be heard at these meetings, you had better yell out over top of people, because you're not going to get the microphone otherwise. I'm sorry to say, but something needs to change somehow, and I'm not sure how that can happen. Ideally, respectfully, in some kind of petition, But if people don't listen to you week after week after week, I would yell out too. So that's my take on that. It was very intense and emotional there at the end of the meeting. I'm sorry it didn't come through. Hopefully it'll come through on someone else's video that they post later on. So there was also discussion of the water quality in catchment tanks in Leilani, testing at pH 1 or 2, right? So issues with that as well. the Department of Water, whichever department's in charge of water, is not issuing any statement. There is no lab to test exactly what kind of chemicals are in there as well. So it seems like maybe that's not a very safe situation, right? So and there's no support is the issue that I'm hearing there. There's no support. So that's a quick take on a meeting. You know, I believe if you guys, I believe that there will be more information coming out. You know, I think you guys can check on Hawaii Tracker, maybe go into more detail on that. Yeah, unless you guys have any more questions about the meeting in particular, you can dredge up some memory that I can't forget exactly what exactly happened. I'm glad to update what I might remember, but I think I have covered what sticks out in my mind. So let me scroll back through here and see what you guys might want to know otherwise before I sign off here. All right, let's see. So, all right. I think I covered it all. I read the questions here. Maybe I'm just a little too tired to see what else is coming through. Oh yeah, there's something I missed. Yeah, he did mention that the National Guard media tours will be ending. I believe he said at the end of the month, which is probably the end of next week, a week from today maybe, sometime around there, another week or so. He did say that civil defense escorts into Leilani will continue by appointment. So you guys who are needing to get access can still stay in contact with them for that. But it's we're all kind of curious what's happening with the pulling out of the media tours for the National Guard. This may be, maybe something that might be worth just kind of picking at the scab a little bit. There's been a lot of issues with media reporting this eruption. So someone calling for me from outside. For whatever reason, it's been very hard for media to get the access they need or they want. And that's something we're hoping to explore a little further. We're not really sure, exactly what the rationale is or, what the policies exactly are. It seems like one possibility is that if people see media photographs of the eruption, they may get an expectation to want to see that same thing, and that, given a lot of viewing issues, is a problem. So maybe that's the rationale, but I don't really know. I do know that it's been very hard for media. We have media coming through here, the hub, all the time, asking us, is there, how do you guys document what's going on? And it's just because of people feeding us information, really. We're just kind of gathering it all together. So yeah, there's something going on there. I don't know what to say about it beyond that. I'm not media, despite what I am doing with you guys, and I'm kind of become a reporter just by default. I'm not a reporter really. I'm just a citizen geologist, as I like to call myself, who I can actually translate what the things USGS is saying to what you guys might understand. So yeah, it's kind of shocking to me that reporting falls to me. I'm glad to do it. I'm happy to do it, but it never started off being my job. They're very qualified reporters who are struggling to do their jobs. So that's interesting, very interesting to me. And I'm curious to explore that dynamic a little more at some point. So, all right, guys, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Thanks to Hawaii Tracker for kind of helping me gather all the information before I do these updates. they are going to put out, if they haven't already, a text post, you know, with all the stuff written out, typed out, so you guys can see what's going on there. There's a lot of other news came through Tracker today, so I encourage you guys to go check out the website. And yeah, guys, if you haven't heard about our fundraising drive, you know, thank you guys all so much for those of you guys who've contributed already. You know, the response has been fantastic. We're so humbled and proud to be serving you guys. You know, with the service that we're doing. But we'd like to you know, to encourage you guys, if you haven't heard about it, to go check out the posts on the Hawaii Tracker page about what that's all about. All right. So thank you guys. I'm gonna go back home and get some rest tonight. You know, look for Scott Wilson's photographs on a post that either he will make or will be made on Hawaii Tracker. Oh, sorry guys. Yeah, look for his photographs on Tracker, and you guys will get another round probably from later tonight. Thank you so much to Scott. Sorry, you guys. I'm trying to better wrap it up here. You guys trying to get a hold of me, so maybe someone else can post the link to that thing. Yeah, hawaiitracker.com. Yeah, guys, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna talk to Ikaika, who's trying to figure out what's going on also back on a boat. So hopefully we'll get together with Ikaika tomorrow. We'll do an update together. And until then, tell you guys, stay classy, Puna. Aloha.